World Theatre Day may have come and gone, but I still can't resist playing a little bit of theatre. I hope that brightened up your Monday morning. And we're joined now by our wonderful guest who also works in the theatre industry. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I think that's the first time I've ever been played in by Chicago, but there's a first for everything.
Absolutely. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
My name's Andrew Exeter. I'm a designer, so I design sets and lighting, sometimes video and things for all sorts of things in the arts industry, theatre, concerts. I trained at BOA in Birmingham and then continued down in London at Rose Bruford. And now I kind of do this thing for real, I think now. So kind of quite deep into it.
So I'll jump right in with the hard question. I can imagine this last year has been a bit of a shock for you with shows cancelled, all of these sorts of things. Tell us a little bit about what it was like in those first couple of weeks and how it's been for the last 12 months, really.
That's a big question. I think it's been super interesting. I mean, I think like everyone, there was just a huge hit, right, last year. So I think a lot of people, like myself, we just sort of saw work drop like day after day after day. And I'd be like getting up every morning waiting for a phone call about another cancellation. And the scary one I remember was one getting cancelled. Producer I worked with for the British Theatre Academy rang me and said, we're going to cancel the season. And I was like, what, the season in August? I was like, it's not going to go on that long, surely. And that was kind of the indicator to me that actually it was going to get quite quiet. So there were a couple of months of absolutely nothing. And I know me and a lot of other people who work backstage or in creative arts in the industry started trying to do different hustles. So I started doing a lot of website design or graphic design to try and fill that gap. But then as the summer came, it got a little bit more interesting. And I got asked to do a project at the Minack in Cornwall, which is like an outdoor production of the last 5 years, which was super exciting, led by a couple of Birmingham producers as well. And that was a real shining hope moment where we could actually go, oh, there's actually going to be some theatre this year. So that was super special. And from then it's been really, really tough because it's been 50% everyone wants to go full steam and 50% everyone doesn't want to go. So it's been interesting. The last sort of 6 months after that, there's been lots of kind of 50-50 stuff going on. Like I've been doing a lot of these like live stream things where we take shows, we film them in theatres or we film them on location and we take that and stream it on platforms like Broadway HD or Stream.Theatre. So really the last year has been completely about not only checking in on your own craft, but shifting to make sure that like you're up to date with what's going on, because creating stuff in theatre now isn't what it was a year and a half ago. So yeah.
It must have been so interesting from a perspective of somebody who works in the industry, though, to see how theatre and the arts had to kind of adapt. And especially in the summer, as you were saying, when it was kind of okay for events to go ahead, but there were still concerns. Was it kind of cool from your perspective to see these new innovative formats? And did you find that you had to innovate and adapt in your set design as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think like as a creative, I think your job, I was speaking to someone about this yesterday, like, I think your job is literally to adapt, like no matter what the circumstances are, your job is to create theatre, you know, or create whatever you do. And I think like that this has been certainly interesting because I did not train at all in TV or film or cameras or anything like that. And suddenly, I mean, 2 months ago, we were filming a production of Brooklyn with Lambert Jackson Productions, and which is available on Stream.Theatre now. We basically filmed it in like this abandoned warehouse, and the director was like, will you come and do some design stuff for it? And I was like, sure, but what am I designing? And it's been super interesting to see how like, you can control slightly more of what's going on from like a design point of view. You can kind of go, well, we didn't sort of do that bit, so pull the camera this way, or in post we can add this, or where's the detailing here? But it's so different. I mean, there's a scene in Brooklyn where there's a newspaper used, and normally in theatre you could just use any old newspaper, like to an extent, like no one's going to see exactly what it is. But in this thing, it was like, this thing has to be a New York newspaper. It has to have the exact thing of whatever period. So like the detailing of stuff is really different. But yeah, it's been super interesting to see the adaptation process people are going through.
And when you were talking then and you were going through all of the process, there's so many different stages that go into a theatrical production. Obviously, we come in, we sit down, we enjoy the 2 hours of escapism. But I think that this year, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the impact that, you know, there's been on the theatres. But I think there's been less talk about the sort of knock-on effect that has not only on the people that work backstage, but also all of the industries that are connected. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that's been and your experience talking to people in the industry?
I mean, it's super weird, right? So my primary thing is a set and lighting designer. So I'll design things and work with a company, work with a producer or a director. But the people that then create what I'm talking about have been so hard hit because, like, as I said, like as a creative, we can go, yeah, sure, let's just create something. We can gather with a couple of our other creative mates and film something or do something. But actually, the people that create some of the stuff I do, I mean, when I do lights on a project, there's often hire companies that will bring the lights, right? So we hire off them, and they've had nothing for like the last year and a half. And it was really scary, like towards the end of last year, seeing some of these companies like drop off the face of the earth, you know. So like big production companies like Cirque du Soleil and things like that folded, but actually some of the PRG, which is a Birmingham-based like lighting video supplier, they were hit so hard by some of the stuff that was going on because if the tours aren't there or the shows aren't there, they've got nothing to supply for. So it has been a lot of that for those companies, especially. It's scary, some of the stuff that's gone on.
And I think we've all realised how important arts and culture are during this time. I mean, I know I, for one, have been making like thorough use of all of the online offers. Do you think the government have supported the industry enough? Do you think they could have done more and should continue to do more?
Yeah, no, I absolutely don't think the government has done enough. Yes, I think they should do a lot more. There's been lots of campaigns. There's been lots and lots of campaigns that have been going on. We Are Events was a huge one, where they were lighting up all the buildings red across the country and things like. I think there's been some help. It's all come too late. There are still so many freelancers. You know, our industry is made up of so many freelancers, and anyone that graduated, you know, students that graduate in the last year have not been eligible for any kind of backup funding because they haven't done a self-employed assessment. So only in this latest one have they been able to, but that's like a year of nothing. So I mean, a lot of the people I know who went to drama school with me are back now in home. They don't live in London anymore and things, you know. So, and I think that's entirely down to the way the government have handled it with all sectors, but especially in the arts. It's like, if we can't go on, there is nothing. So,
absolutely. I mean, you paint like a very tragically bleak picture of how hard the industry has been hit. But do you have faith that now the lockdown is beginning to ease, that the industry as a whole will be able to bounce back?
I think so. I think naturally as an industry, we're one of the most resilient industries in the world. Like the art sectors are so resilient, and we've been hit by all sorts of years. And I think it will. I mean, I'm looking forward to a production we're doing in the last lockdown. In that little gap in the summer, we did a production of Hair in concert at Battersea Power Station. And that was really great fun. But we've announced we're bringing that back. So in June, we're at the London Palladium for one night and it's socially distanced. And then we go to the Southampton Mayflower at the end and it won't be social distanced, hopefully, you know, the 21st of June, if that all goes ahead, we'll be able to do this concert that we built in lockdown with a full production. So I think we are resilient, we are coming back, but we need audiences to come and support us and come and join in the fun, I think.
Do you have any other projects coming up? I can imagine that whilst opening up is obviously welcomed, there probably is still a lot of, as you were saying, uncertainty about whether jobs can go ahead. And obviously there's a bit of a backlog as well with roles, people coming into roles or had previous projects that now need to be redone and all those sorts of things.
I think it's pretty crazy organization wise. I mean, I'm involved in a few, I work for a lighting designer called Ben Cracknell, who oversees a lot of the major tours that are out at the minute. And I mean, we were booked in to do things like Greece and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert and Rock of Ages, all of them we were booked in to retake out last year. And they're all trying to panically, I think, get in slots in what's coming up over the next couple of months. So yeah, I feel very fortunate that I've got quite a bit coming up. But that's because I think a lot of the people I work for are a bit like me. They just really want to create and do stuff, and people are desperate to do things. But I do think it's going to be really interesting to see how the industry fits people in. And I also think, like, as a less bleak thing for kind of other young people coming into the industry, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that we're the not so experienced ones yet, because the industry's totally kind of in a new place now. And I think you can work into any part of it you want to. I didn't think I'd be doing some of the things I'm doing this year, but because the industry's fallen so weirdly, there's weird groups of people doing stuff that they wouldn't normally be doing. So I think there is a huge beacon of hope for it. And I think people just need to get involved and enjoy it, because I think we're all gagging for a bit of theatre in the arts at the minute.
You know what, Andrew, you literally just asked the very question that I was going to ask before I let you go. But listen, thank you so much for coming on and speaking to us. It really has been a pleasure. And we wish you best of luck with all of your post-lockdown theatrical endeavours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, don't go anywhere, guys, because we've got some more great music on the way from the likes of Girls Aloud, Ronan Keating, and maybe even a little bit of Calvin Harris after the local headlines.